right, as I mentioned at the top of the program, we talked about this yesterday, but I was actually picked up a newspaper yesterday and read Epoch Times. It reminded me of a report that we did just recently on how this administration is focusing on the LGBTQ agenda in their foreign policy. Now, this happens to be an article in Epoch Times that said the U.S. grants $4.1 billion to LGBT and trans initiatives. Now, I'm going to play this clip again of President Biden here in D.C. on Saturday night speaking to the HRC and their annual dinner, where he is actually boasting of his top priority in foreign policy.
We made human rights for LGBT around the world a top priority in my foreign policy, increasing our assistance to brave activists on the ground, defending human rights in countries to pass anti-gay laws.
Strong-arming countries to change their laws, and it's not just LGBTQ. He says top priority. The other two top priorities, what I call the unholy trinity: abortion, strong-arming countries to change their laws on abortion, and on climate. Those three. Joining me now to talk more about this, Travis Weber, Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs here at the Family Research Council. Travis, welcome back.
Thank you, Tony.
So let's talk about actually, we've got a report here that we did just about 2 months ago on how what the president just said there is true. He actually is speaking the truth. This is a top priority for them, and we've got the evidence.
We do. It's a sad day that we have to say this, but basically what we show is the information in the administration that backs up what he just said, right? So we talk about policy and personality. Well, Biden's policy is laying out a record here that's sad. Americans need to know about it because we're still used to thinking of ourselves and the West and European West as promoting human rights and the Cold War era, promoting freedom. This is shifting, and there's a chance if we still ask for the Lord's help, but it's shifting quickly.
Well, this stands in stark contrast to the Trump administration when Mike Pompeo was Secretary of State. I worked with him when I was at USERV very closely. He's a longtime friend, but he said publicly and privately the number one foreign policy priority of the Trump administration was religious freedom.
Religious freedom, right. And we're hearing
and this is the opposite.
It's the opposite. So not only, there's two things here. Number one, it distracts. When President Biden gets up and says that, you're displacing what should be a foreign policy priority. When we have Christians in India being killed, people in China being put under horrific conditions for exercising their faith. Just you can go through the myriad of nations around the world. America used to defend that. Now we're saying we're defending this. And number two, when you say it's a policy priority, that you're going to result in policies that themselves harm religious freedom. When pastors, people, Päivi Räsänen in Finland, tweet Bible verses, they're going to come under government sanction. And the United States now is signaling we're not on the side of religious freedom. We're on the side of anti-Christian bias.
So, Travis, we're going to talk just a little bit about, give some examples of what these funds are being used for.
Yeah, and so, Tony, you referenced the Epoch Times report. This is alarming because $4.1 billion in federal money going to LGBT initiatives. This is domestic and overseas. They're tracking grants. I just want to reference one, a group in Armenia, Pink Human Rights Defender, receiving $1 million to empower the LGBT community. A group in Serbia receiving $500,000 to encourage diversity in Serbia's workplaces. So these countries need actual help. Armenia, Azerbaijan, there's a conflict right now. The United States needs to be...
people are actually starving there.
They're starving. There's a genocide, slow motion genocide underway. This is what the U.S. government's funding. These are just two examples. If you look at our report, we analyzed several months ago, that we go through the numbers. 99 U.S. embassies flew pride flags during Pride Month, 49 at staffers participating in parades. State Department criticized 67 countries for counseling bans for same-sex attraction, 48 countries for not recognizing LGBT, and 154 for not having gender recognition. So those are just some numbers. Rahm Emanuel in Japan, coercing Japan on its LGBT laws as ambassador.
And many of these grants are going to non-governmental organizations, which then agitate for the changing of laws And so they're working against the values of that country and that government.
Very insidious. And Tony, this is happening. You mentioned abortion. It's on the LGBT issue and abortion. We know PEPFAR funds have flowed to organizations which, by their own words, work to change pro-life laws in Africa.
We're almost out of time, Travis, but when we see what appears to be the world spinning out of control, should we really be surprised when this is the priority of this administration in foreign policy?
It's logical unless we, as the church in America, we can beseech the Lord on behalf of our country and speak out and urge our government to turn back to God. We need God's help for this and everything else, but we hope in His provision, His care.
Yeah. Travis Weber, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.